The restaurant buzzed with chatter as I quietly sipped my water. Daphne dominated our table like she always did, her voice carrying over everyone else's. She wore her success like expensive jewelry, making sure everyone noticed. My son Cody sat beside her, nodding along to whatever she said, his eyes never meeting mine. The dim lighting cast shadows across the white tablecloth, and I found myself studying the wine stains and breadcrumbs left by previous diners. Anything to avoid watching my son hang on his wife's every word like a devoted puppy. When her coworkers joined us, Daphne made introductions with her usual flair. She gestured toward me with a dismissive wave, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Oh, that's just my husband's mom. She's retired from teaching, I think. Basically a nobody." The group laughed politely, their eyes sliding past me like I was furniture. My face froze, but I kept my smile steady. The word nobody echoed in my head like a bell tolling. Cody said nothing. He didn't defend me or correct her. He just stared at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. I wanted to speak up, to remind everyone that I had raised a successful son and built a life worth living. Instead, I took another sip of water and waited. Something shifted inside me that night, like a door clicking shut. Then Daphne's boss approached our table, and my heart skipped. I recognized him immediately. I finished dinner with grace, pretending not to hear the subtle digs Daphne kept making. She was on a roll, enjoying her audience like a performer feeding off applause. Every comment felt like a paper cut, small but stinging. She mentioned my simple little apartment and my quiet retirement lifestyle, with fake sympathy that fooled no one but herself. The other guests ate it up, laughing at her witty observations about my supposedly mundane existence. I watched them through my peripheral vision, noting how they leaned forward when she spoke, how they ignored me completely unless forced to acknowledge my presence. Cody avoided my eyes all night, his guilt written across his face in nervous tics and awkward silences. When I tried to join conversations, Daphne would smoothly redirect attention back to herself. She talked about her latest project, her designer shoes, her ambitious career plans. I became invisible, just background noise to her symphony. The other guests treated me like an old piece of furniture, polite but forgettable. They asked Daphne questions about work and travel, but nobody wondered about my life or experiences. I was just Cody's mom, taking up space at their important dinner. But as we prepared to leave, her boss pulled me aside. His eyes lit up with recognition. "I didn't realize you were Celeste Walker," he whispered urgently. "We need to talk next week." My heart pounded as he handed me his business card. Daphne was busy saying goodbye to her coworkers, completely unaware of our conversation. 2 weeks earlier, I had sat in my financial advisor's polished office, still processing the news that felt like fiction. My brother Marcus had left me his entire real estate trust when he died. The numbers on the papers seemed impossible. More money than I had ever dreamed of having, enough to change generations of lives. Marcus had always been the successful sibling, the one who made smart investments while I focused on raising Cody and teaching children. I never imagined he had been building something this substantial, or that he would leave it all to me. "You're sitting on a small fortune," my advisor explained, sliding documents across his mahogany desk. "Marcus built quite an empire before he passed. He wanted you to be comfortable, secure for the rest of your life." I stared at the numbers, thinking about my simple life, my modest apartment, my quiet routines. This money could change everything, but I wasn't sure I wanted everything to change. I had lived simply for so long, finding contentment in small pleasures. "I'd recommend investing some of this," he continued. "Keep it growing instead of letting it sit idle in accounts." I nodded slowly, an idea forming in my mind. "Let's start small," I said, thinking about Daphne's company and her smug confidence. "I know, just the company." My advisor raised his eyebrows but began taking notes. He had no idea what I was planning. Now, sitting in my car after that humiliating dinner, I called him back. "I'm ready to go bigger." The next morning, I signed the non-disclosure agreement with steady hands. The CEO of Daphne's firm couldn't hide his excitement as we finalized my investment agreement. His company desperately needed capital, and I was offering exactly what they required. "We're thrilled to have you as a silent investor," he said, practically beaming. Your contribution will make a huge difference to our growth plans." I leaned forward, meeting his eager gaze. "I have one condition. No one, not even my family, can know about this yet. I want to remain completely anonymous for now." He nodded quickly. "Of course, absolutely. We understand the need for discretion in these matters." The papers felt heavy in my hands as I signed them. Each signature was a step toward something I couldn't quite name yet. The CEO shook my hand warmly, treating me with the respect I hadn't felt in years. That evening, Daphne practically danced around their kitchen as she told Cody the news. "We just got a mystery investor. This is exactly what I needed. I'll be partner within a year, guaranteed." Cody smiled and kissed her cheek, celebrating her success. Neither of them wondered if I might have heard their excited conversation through the thin walls. The following Sunday, Daphne and Cody hosted their usual family lunch. Daphne had prepared an elaborate spread, taking photos for her social media before we even sat down. She made passive-aggressive comments about my simple lifestyle while serving the salad. "It must be so relaxing to have no responsibilities," she said with fake sweetness. "Just sleeping in every day, watching television, no pressure at all." I remained composed, cutting my chicken into small pieces. Cody stayed focused on his food, avoiding the tension building around our table. He had mastered the art of disappearing while sitting right there. But when Daphne laughed and added, "Must be hard to contribute to society once you stop working and become irrelevant," something flashed in my chest. I looked up, smiled calmly, and said, "You'd be surprised what some people contribute behind the scenes." Daphne paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. There was something in my tone that made her study my face more carefully. She walked away a few minutes later, scoffing under her breath. Cody finally looked at me. "Why do you let her talk to you like that, Mom?" I didn't answer right away. Some questions deserved silence. That night, I spread Marcus's will across my kitchen table, reading every detail carefully. Along with the money, he had left me documents tied to companies across the city. One name jumped out immediately, a firm where Daphne had applied years ago and been rejected for unethical practices. Marcus had been thorough. His files contained information about businesses, people, connections I never knew existed. He had built a network of knowledge along with his wealth. Everything was now mine to use. I closed the folder and reached for my phone. "Some investigations required professional help. I need you to look into a woman named Daphne Carter," I told the lawyer I had found in Marcus's contacts. "I want to know everything about her professional history, her current position, and any red flags in her behavior." The lawyer's voice was crisp and professional. "Of course, Miss Walker. How detailed do you want this investigation to be?" I thought about the word "nobody" echoing in my head. "Very detailed. I want to know exactly who I'm dealing with." The investigation would take 2 weeks. I could wait. I had been patient my entire life. The following week, Daphne's CEO called her into his office with exciting news. They had a presentation to prepare for their new investor, and he wanted her to lead the project. She practically glowed as she accepted the assignment. I watched from behind the glass wall as she immediately delegated most of the actual work to a junior employee named Tyler. She kept the important parts for herself, ensuring she would get full credit for the final presentation. Tyler worked late into the evening, researching data and creating slides while Daphne attended a networking event. She returned the next morning and reviewed his work, making small changes so she could claim ownership. The CEO had no idea about her delegation tactics. He praised her for the excellent progress on the presentation, not knowing that Tyler had done most of the heavy lifting. I made notes in my phone, documenting everything I observed. The CEO had mentioned wanting feedback on team dynamics before I made any additional investments. I was certainly gathering plenty of feedback. When Daphne presented the project timeline, I requested something specific. I'd like to review her leadership style in action before committing to further investments. The CEO agreed immediately. He had no idea what he was agreeing to. 2 weeks later, my lawyer delivered a thick folder containing everything about Daphne's professional behavior. I read every page twice, taking notes on the patterns I discovered. She was toxic with subordinates, arrogant with peers, and dishonest about small details that added up to bigger problems. Nothing was illegal, But plenty was unethical. She took credit for other people's work, exaggerated her achievements on reports, and treated junior staff like personal assistants. She had even falsified small budget lines to make her projects look more successful. The report painted a clear picture of someone who climbed ladders by stepping on other people's fingers. She was skilled at hiding her behavior from supervisors while terrorizing everyone below her. I smiled as I closed the folder. Marcus always said that some people needed enough rope to hang themselves. Daphne was weaving hers beautifully. I called the CEO the next morning. "I want to be clear about something," I said. "Daphne stays in her current position for now. I want her to feel completely secure." The CEO seemed confused but agreed. "Of course, whatever you think is best for the company." He had no idea that security was exactly what would make everything else possible. The anniversary of my husband's death arrived quietly. I had made reservations at our favorite restaurant, planning to honor his memory with a glass of wine and his favorite dessert. It was a tradition I had kept for 5 years. Cody had promised to join me, but an hour before dinner, he sent a text. "Sorry, Mom. Daphne has a work emergency. Rain check?" I stared at the message for a long moment. A work emergency on the anniversary of his father's death. I deleted the text without responding and drove to the restaurant alone. The server seated me at a table for 2. I ordered wine and sat quietly, watching other families enjoy their meals together. The empty chair across from me felt heavier than my husband's absence ever had. After dinner, I sat in my car and opened my laptop. The company's anonymous reporting system was easy to find on their website. I began typing a detailed complaint about Daphne's behavior, including specific dates and examples from my investigation. The report was professional, factual, and completely anonymous. I hit send and closed the laptop, feeling something shift inside my chest again. The company received the anonymous complaint on a Tuesday morning. I watched through the glass walls as the CEO called Daphne into his office. Her confident stride faltered slightly when she saw the serious expression on his face. The meeting lasted an hour. Daphne emerged looking rattled, but not panicked. The CEO was giving her the benefit of the doubt, just as I had expected. She was skilled at talking her way out of trouble. But the complaint was now part of her official file. Seeds had been planted, and I was very good at nurturing things that needed to grow slowly. When the CEO called me that afternoon, I was ready. "I'm actually considering increasing my investment," I told him. "But I'd like to see how the company handles internal excellence. Could we arrange some kind of company event? Something where I could observe team dynamics more closely?" "A gala would be perfect," he said enthusiastically. "We've been wanting to host something to celebrate our growth and recognize our team." I smiled into the phone. "That sounds exactly right. Let's plan something memorable." A gala would provide the perfect stage for what came next. Daphne was thrilled when the CEO announced the upcoming gala. She saw it as her moment to shine, her chance to network with important people and secure her path to partnership. She immediately began planning her outfit and practicing her elevator pitch. "This is exactly what my career needed," she told Cody over dinner. "Meeting the mystery investor face to face will change everything. I'll finally get the recognition I deserve." She spent hours researching the most expensive dress shops and booking appointments with stylists. The gala had become her personal showcase, her moment to prove she belonged in the highest circles. Cody listened to her plans with growing excitement. They both saw this as their ticket to a more prestigious life, their gateway to the success they felt they deserved. Daphne even volunteered to help with planning, suggesting catering companies and entertainment options. She wanted to be involved in every detail, ensuring the event would reflect her sophisticated taste. The CEO was delighted by her enthusiasm. "Actually," he told her during one planning meeting, "I'd like you to be the one who introduces our mystery investor to everyone that night." Daphne's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She was going to be the star of the evening. I worked carefully with the CEO to plan my reveal for the perfect moment. The gala would build to a climax where Daphne would introduce the mystery investor, not knowing she was introducing me. The irony was too perfect to resist. "I want to remain hidden until the very end," I explained to the CEO. Let everyone enjoy the evening, let the anticipation build, and then we'll have our moment. He was intrigued by the theatrical approach and agreed to keep my identity secret even from his closest staff. Only he knew who would be taking the stage that night. The guest list included board members, clients, and all company employees. It would be the perfect audience for what I had planned. When Cody called me a few days later, his request shouldn't have surprised me. "Mom, about the gala. It's really more of a business thing. Not really your scene, you know? Maybe you should skip this one." The dismissal in his voice was casual, like he was suggesting I skip a movie I wouldn't enjoy. He had no idea he was trying to exclude me from my own moment of truth. "I understand," I said quietly. "I wouldn't want to be somewhere I don't belong." His relief was audible through the phone. The next morning, I walked into the boutique where Daphne shopped regularly. She had once mocked me for even looking in their windows, suggesting their clothes were too sophisticated for someone like me. The sales clerk recognized me from previous visits with Daphne. I had always been the quiet older woman trailing behind, never buying anything, just watching while Daphne tried on expensive outfits. "I'm looking for something elegant," I told her. "Something for a very special evening." She showed me to the formal wear section, her attitude shifting when I began seriously considering the more expensive pieces. I selected a stunning black dress that fit perfectly, sophisticated, confident, and powerful. The price tag made the clerk's eyes widen, but I handed over my credit card without hesitation. Marcus's inheritance had given me more than money. It had given me the freedom to choose how I wanted to be seen. As she wrapped the dress in tissue paper, the clerk leaned closer and whispered, "You're going to show them all, aren't you?" I smiled as I took the bag. "That's exactly what I intend to do." The confirmation I needed came when I wasn't looking for it. I had stopped by Cody's apartment to drop off some documents he had requested, letting myself in with the spare key he had given me years ago. Their voices carried from the kitchen, and I paused in the hallway when I heard my name. "Mom doesn't get it," Cody was saying. "Daphne's career is everything right now. This gala could change our entire future. Mom just doesn't matter anymore in situations like this." Daphne's voice was warm with agreement. "She's sweet, but she doesn't understand our world. Some people are meant for bigger things, and some people aren't." I stood frozen in their hallway, listening to my son explain why I was irrelevant to his life. The casual way he dismissed me hurt more than Daphne's original insult. She was cruel by nature, but Cody was my child. I quietly placed his documents on the hall table and left without making a sound. They never knew I had been there. Walking back to my car, I felt something settle in my chest, a cold, clear resolve that hadn't been there before. Daphne spent the week before the gala rehearsing her introduction speech. She practiced in front of their bathroom mirror, perfecting her gestures and timing. I could hear her from the hallway when I visited. "We are proud to welcome someone who understands excellence, class, and true influence," she practiced, her voice dripping with admiration for someone she had never met. Meanwhile, I was being fitted for my gala dress at the boutique. The seamstress made tiny adjustments to ensure it hung perfectly. Every detail mattered for what was coming. That afternoon, my lawyer delivered one final piece of information, proof that Daphne had faked a client testimonial on her latest project review. She had created a glowing recommendation from a client who had actually been dissatisfied with her work. The evidence was small but damning. An email trail showing how she had fabricated the testimonial and submitted it as genuine feedback. It was exactly the kind of ethical violation that could destroy a career in her industry. I filed the information carefully with the rest of my evidence. Everything was falling into place like dominoes arranged for the perfect collapse. The night before the gala, Daphne and Cody celebrated at home with expensive champagne. They toasted to her upcoming success and the mysterious investor who would change their lives forever. "Wait until everyone sees me up there with the investor," Daphne laughed, spinning around their living room in her new dress. "This is my moment, finally." I sat in my apartment across town, looking out at the city lights and feeling strangely calm. All the pieces were in position. All the players knew their roles. Tomorrow night, the curtain would finally rise on the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from the CEO. Everything is set for tomorrow. Are you ready for this? I typed back, I've been ready for months. The gala would be held at the city's most prestigious hotel. The guest list included everyone who mattered in their industry. The stage was set for a performance none of them would ever forget. I went to bed early, sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. Tomorrow would bring justice, but tonight I could rest in the calm before the storm. The hotel ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and elegant decorations. I arrived exactly when I had planned, after most guests had already gathered for cocktails. The CEO had saved my entrance for maximum impact. Heads turned as I walked through the doors. The black dress moved with confidence I had forgotten I possessed. My hair was styled perfectly, my makeup subtle but striking. I looked like someone who belonged in rooms like this. Several people nodded politely, not recognizing me but sensing importance. I moved through the crowd with quiet grace, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. Then I saw Daphne across the room, and her double take was worth every moment of planning. She stared at me with confusion, her brain struggling to process why I was there. She whispered urgently to Cody, who turned to look at me with surprise and something that might have been embarrassment. They had both made it clear this wasn't my world. I raised my champagne glass slightly in their direction and smiled. The evening was just beginning. The moment arrived exactly as we had rehearsed it. Daphne took the stage with radiant confidence, her voice carrying perfectly through the sound system. She glowed under the spotlights, finally in her element. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her smile dazzling. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our company's success, but the vision of someone very special who believes in our future." She launched into her prepared speech, praising the mysterious investor's wisdom and generosity. Every word dripped with admiration for someone she had never met, but desperately wanted to impress. "This investor understands excellence, class, and the kind of influence that changes industries," Daphne continued, building to her crescendo. "Please join me in welcoming someone who will transform our company's future." She gestured grandly toward the side of the stage where I was supposed to appear. The spotlight swung to capture the moment of revelation. The room held its breath as I stepped into the light, my black dress elegant under the bright stage lights. The collective gasp from the audience was everything I had hoped it would be. Silence fell like a heavy curtain over the ballroom. Daphne's confident smile froze on her face as her brain struggled to process what her eyes were seeing. The mystery investor she had been praising was the nobody she had dismissed so casually. I walked to the microphone with calm dignity, my heels clicking softly on the stage floor. The audience watched in stunned fascination as I took my place beside Daphne, who looked like she might faint. "Thank you, Daphne, for that warm introduction," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I'm thrilled to finally invest in what matters most to me, accountability." I gestured to the projection screen behind us, which lit up with carefully prepared slides. Audio recordings of Daphne's dismissive comments played through the sound system, accompanied by emails and documents showing her unethical behavior. The room erupted in murmurs as people recognized the evidence being presented. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Daphne stood frozen beside me, her face draining of all color. "Every leader should be judged by how they treat those they consider beneath them," I continued, letting the evidence speak for itself. The projector continued displaying evidence while the crowd absorbed what they were seeing. Screenshots of falsified reports, recordings of Daphne belittling subordinates, documentation of her taking credit for other people's work. Everything laid out with damning clarity. The CEO stood at his table, his face pale as he realized the full scope of what was happening. Board members whispered urgently among themselves, clearly uncomfortable with the public nature of this revelation. Daphne finally found her voice, stammering into the microphone. This is a misunderstanding. These things are taken out of context. I can explain everything." But her words sounded hollow against the mountain of evidence still displaying behind us. The damage was comprehensive and undeniable. I turned to face the board members directly. "You have a choice to make tonight," I said clearly, "and frankly, so do I." The room held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. This was the moment where consequences would finally catch up to actions, where years of dismissive behavior would meet their reckoning. The CEO looked at me with a mixture of respect and fear, realizing he was witnessing something unprecedented. I returned to the microphone with the authority of someone who controlled the situation completely. The room remained silent, hanging on every word I was about to speak. "I'm prepared to significantly increase my investment in this company," I announced, my voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. "However, Daphne Carter will no longer be affiliated with any projects or initiatives funded by my contributions." The finality in my tone left no room for negotiation. This wasn't a request or a suggestion, it was the condition for my continued support. The CEO recovered his composure and stepped forward. "Miss Walker's concerns are valid and will be addressed immediately. Effective tomorrow, Miss Carter will be suspended pending a full review of these allegations." Daphne's legs seemed to give out slightly. The career she had built, the future she had planned, the partnership she had dreamed of, everything was crumbling in front of an audience of her peers. She looked at me with something between hatred and disbelief, finally understanding that the nobody she had dismissed held her professional life in her hands. The applause that followed was uncertain but genuine, people unsure how to react to such an unprecedented evening. Back at their apartment, Daphne completely fell apart. She collapsed on their couch, sobbing uncontrollably, while Cody paced around their living room like a caged animal. The golden future they had planned together was disappearing before their eyes. "How could you do this to us?" Cody demanded when he called me later that night. His voice shook with anger and desperation. "You've ruined our lives. Daphne's career is over. Everything we worked for is gone." I listened to his tirade with calm detachment, feeling no satisfaction in his pain, but no sympathy either. He had made his choices throughout this entire situation. "You stood by while she tore me down," I replied quietly. "You said nothing when she called me a nobody. You excluded me from your important moments and dismissed my worth. Now you're standing in the ashes of what that kind of cruelty builds." Cody's silence stretched across the phone line. He had no defense for the truth. "I raised you to be better than this," I added, "but apparently I failed somewhere along the way." The phone clicked off, leaving both of us to contemplate what came next. Over the following weeks, I quietly but thoroughly separated myself from my previous life. I moved my investment accounts, updated my will to reflect my changed priorities, and cut contact with people who had shown me their true feelings. The freedom was intoxicating. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible or dismissed. Financial advisors returned my calls immediately. Board members sought my opinion on important decisions. I was respected, and yes, even feared. Daphne's suspension became a termination after the company's investigation confirmed everything I had presented. She struggled to find new employment as word spread through their industry about her unethical behavior. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was Celeste Walker, investor and board advisor, someone whose opinions mattered and whose support was valuable. The transformation felt like waking up from a long, gray dream. 3 weeks after the gala, Cody appeared at my door. He stood in the hallway alone, looking smaller than I remembered. Daphne was waiting in their car, too proud or too ashamed to face me directly. I opened the door, but didn't invite him inside. Cody's apology came slowly, painfully, like pulling teeth. He stumbled over words, trying to explain his behavior without actually taking responsibility for it. He wanted forgiveness without truly understanding what he was asking for. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said finally. "I should have stood up for you. I should have stopped her from treating you that way." I listened quietly, studying his face for signs of genuine remorse versus damage control. After several minutes of his explanations and justifications, I realized something important. I didn't feel the desperate need for his approval anymore. "You taught me something valuable," I said, my voice steady and calm. "You showed me what silence costs when people we love are being mistreated. I won't pay that price again." He looked confused, as if he expected immediate forgiveness and a return to our previous relationship. But some bridges once burned leave only ashes and lessons. "I hope you figure out who you really want to be," I added. "But that's your journey to take alone." I closed the door gently but firmly, hearing Daphne's voice rise in argument from their car outside. 6 months later, I sat in another company's gleaming conference room, but this time everything was different. The new CEO introduced me with genuine respect as Miss Celeste Walker, our lead investor and board advisor. The team members around the table listened carefully to my suggestions and asked thoughtful questions about my recommendations. A young woman named Rebecca presented a brilliant marketing strategy, and I made sure she received full credit for her innovative ideas. "Thank you for your insights, Miss Walker," the CEO said as the meeting concluded. "Your guidance has been invaluable to our growth." I smiled, gathering my papers with confident ease. The respect in the room was real, earned through intelligent decisions and fair treatment of everyone involved. As I walked to my car, I reflected on the journey from that humiliating dinner to this moment of genuine professional recognition. The word nobody no longer echoed in my mind. My phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Thank you for supporting my ideas today." I typed back, "Never let anyone make you feel invisible." Starting my car, I smiled at my reflection in the rearview mirror. "Not bad for a nobody," I whispered, then drove toward whatever came next.